Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. So I recently learned a statistic that nowadays most careers are heavily dependent on having the right network of people. And that's something that I have not been investing in very well over the last 3 years. So I often don't get along with my colleagues because I feel taken advantage of. During the pandemic, I when my colleagues came up to me, it was often to ask for a favor, and I never got any return favors. So let me give you a couple of examples. In 2023, I was working at a tutoring center, and Taylor Swift had a concert in town, and many of my students went away for that, and only a couple students wanted to come that week. Now, most of my colleagues, I don't think they went out to see Taylor Swift. They're not the right demographics for that, but most of them didn't want to come in for like 2 hours of work. So I ended up working that week. And you got to understand it's a tutoring center. A lot of students cancel last minute. They want a session at the last minute. They change schedules at the last minute. They change their mind and decide to go see Taylor Swift at the last minute. They change their mind and they sell their Taylor Swift tickets to somebody else last minute. And then they come to tutoring. There's a lot of that. And so I spent the whole week unable to do very much, right? Because you got to understand what I like to do. A lot of things that I like to do require concentrated thought, right? I was writing an AI for the game of Ticket to Ride at the time. I was making bismuth art, and when you don't know if the phone's going to ring and you're going to head out in 5 minutes, you can't really work with bismuth. There's a lot of setup with that, right? And which is seemed like it was okay because I really loved all of the students. The problem is that at the end of that week, I made about $85 for that week, and I'm thinking to myself, "Gee, I didn't get a break during that week. I had so many last minute things, and so what was really upsetting is I had just set up my direct deposit, so I had gotten an $85 deposit. What I should have done was continue to get a paper check and then go up to the boss and rip that check into a million people. What is this? What is this? And rip it up, right? And so, but it doesn't work the other way around. A couple weeks after that, we had a lunar eclipse. And I even told my boss, I like to have the day after that off because the lunar eclipse was at 2, 3, 4 a.m., if I remember correctly. And so last minute, my boss forgot that I should have put it in writing. Yeah, I understand that. I hate doing that. Nowadays, I do put things in writing, but I really despise the fact that I have to do that because I wish I had people that I could trust. I was talking to a friend about this, and my friend suggested that instead of thinking of it as I can't trust people, think of it as I'm writing a story of how I enjoy these things. It'll probably get over my little psychological hurdle of feeling like I don't have trust. I really hate it when I have to do things that make me feel like I don't trust people. I was living in a house just like this one, and so my silverware kept disappearing. My roommates would use it and forget to return it. I was talking to one of my roommates who was an EMT, and he suggested that I keep my silverware in my room. Now, this is a guy who's about 30 years old, and he's too old for that. This is like college student kind of behavior. And so I'm thinking to myself, is it hard for me to take stuff to my room? Not really. We had a really big room at the time. This is in Levine Village. The problem is that I'll feel like I don't trust people, right? It kind of feels like I'm in jail or some kind of a situation where I can't, like a homeless shelter, right? I feel like I work too hard to have to live in that kind of situation, right? And long story short, experiences like that cause me to treat my roommates and my colleagues as adversaries instead of the good people they are, right? It's almost like I'm back in eighth grade again, right? And I really despise that. Now, the other thing that made me feel like I'm in eighth grade again is that my first week at the new campus, I decided to go to the break room to try and make some investment into my network. And I quickly realized that I couldn't stay very long there. First of all, I'm autistic, and all of the stimuli there is just too much for me. And I wish we as a society were more attuned to that. Uh, Number one. And number two, I have very different interests than a lot of people. Now, in an ideal world, we would find good use for my difference in interest, but in the United States, we just cast people out, right? And so much for all this talk about diversity, right? I really think that if we treated differences in hobbies and interests almost like they were like sexual orientation kind of differences, I really feel that we can make a lot out of it, right? Right. There was a lot of discussion. Now, granted, it happened slowly, but look at how sexual differences have evolved over the last 20, 30 years. So we really need a plan to do that with differences in interests as well. I really feel we could get a lot out of it. I really do. What if the some kind of Nobel Prize winning idea or some kind of invention for the future were stuck in the mind of somebody who had very different hobbies and interests? Right? I guarantee there's a lot of great stuff locked away like that in our society, right? But anyway, I felt cast out. And things like that make me wonder the next time my colleague needs me to fill in at an odd hour, the next time Taylor Swift is in town, how I should handle that, right? Because I can help my colleagues, but when it comes when the shoe's on the other foot, it doesn't seem to get returned, right? I'm thinking that I'm just gonna have because I'm cast out like this. I'm just gonna have to be a little bit more forceful in taking those return favors in the future, right? I now looking back at it, when I got the $85 paycheck, I didn't really make a wave about it, but I should have because looking back at it 3 years later, it's not like I'm still working there, right? So had I made a wave about it, I still wouldn't be working there. So why not, right? I should have. But at the time, I uh, I was uncomfortable about that, and uh, the next time I take a job like a gig work like that, I'm not going to set up direct deposit anymore. So that if I get any surprises on my check, I could really make a wave about that, right? This is the Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum.